I would love to say one thing and one thing only. Bo Nix terrifies the future of the AFC West.
Not doing that.
It's genuine. It's sincere. Year one, we've already made the playoffs. This is while having $80 million dead cap. He's changed our franchise. More importantly, I would be damned if I didn't say, Sean Payton, I love you. I don't care if people hate you, Sean. I would never hate you as long as you're my head coach. They love to hate you, but damn it, I love to love you. It brings fear into the division. If that's what people don't want to hear, I don't care. We're gonna have money to spend next year. The Raiders realize we got Bo Nix, we got Justin Herbert, but we got that demon in Kansas City. And although they're trading pieces, they got rid of Joe Tooney.
They'll win 13 games.
I still think they're still gonna win the division.
Yeah.
You have Harbaugh. You have to fear what they're going to do. They have money to spend. They're obviously gonna make some moves to be better. The Raiders had to do something. They can't just lag behind and do nothing. They know, especially with Brady as one of the owners of the team, they have to go out there and put pieces together to be respectable. I think getting Geno Smith, you have Brock Bowers, you have Jacoby Myers. You're going to go ahead and draft a running back. I think that's obvious. You bring in Pete Carroll. It makes sense why he would bring in Geno Smith too, obviously. They have strong rapport from their time in Seattle. Pete Carroll and Geno Smith, the two of them blossomed together. And Pete Carroll was already stamped, but the fact that he put his faith in Geno Smith, was willing to trade Russell Wilson, or at least put his stamp on that, and Geno Smith play the way that he played, 30 touchdowns in a season. Got to give you respect. You're a Smithian. I definitely see the light on Geno Smith, although this wasn't his best year statistically, I could say, but that offensive line was putrid.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Stats do lie, and 100%. Geno Smith was not as bad as the numbers say. He will be good with the Raiders.
Yeah, I think
it's like Giannis and Dame, most points are the best duo. Okay, go ahead.
Just like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, huh?
What?
I don't know, man.
I was getting wrapped up in a tweet right there that I was tweeting, because this is a massive move, and Geno Smith, I think his stats over the last 2 seasons have not reflected the play that I've seen on film and on the field from him. I think a lot of his turnovers really aren't his fault. You look at PFF and his turnover-worthy play percentage, he ranks amongst the lowest quarterbacks. I think this is ironic. We just had Nick Benito on the show, and I asked him about Geno Smith's pocket presence, and now he's going to face him twice a year, and he's going to recognize that Geno Smith elite pocket presence, baby. But, man, first of all, let's just go over the trade details. I really have a rant that I want to get into, but I just want to go over the details first. Geno Smith has been traded to the Las Vegas Raiders. A third-round pick goes to the Seattle Seahawks. And now the Raiders, instead of Gardner Minshew being the starting quarterback, they have Geno Smith. Geno Smith is a great quarterback. Geno Smith, I think, is a better investment than signing Sam Darnold long-term to whatever contract he was going to get. Geno Smith still, I believe, has about 2 years of high-level quarterback play in him. And with the Seahawks, he had no offensive line. He had no running game. He had receivers, that is a fact. But his offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubb, this past year, he came from college, and I don't think he put Geno in the best position. You now go to the Raiders where you reunite with Pete Carroll. You have a good offensive line. You have weapons. I think they're going to get a running back, and they're going to have a running game. Chip Kelly's the OC. Chip Kelly, whatever you can say about him, I think his system that he runs is a very quarterback-friendly system. But I'm just really thinking about this offensive line. No disrespect to Charles Cross, because Charles Cross had a fantastic season.
Solid player.
He's not Colton Miller.
Nope.
Colton Miller is a shut-down left tackle pass protector. Now Geno Smith does not have to worry about a putrid offensive line. You have Jackson Powers Johnson. You also have Alex Kappa, who they signed from the Bengals, who, when he's healthy, is a good guard. The Raiders have a much better offensive line than the Seattle Seahawks. And while they might not have JSN and DK Metcalf, they have Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers, and they could still add to that because they have a lot. You can argue, and they have a lot of cap space. So I love this situation for Geno. Geno's on a prove-it deal. This the last year of his contract, so this means that the Raiders don't have to invest into him long-term. It's a prove-it year. And I'm sure Tom Brady had an influence on this decision. I'm sure that he saw Geno Smith and Darnold play, and he thinks that Geno Smith is a much better quarterback. This is no disrespect to Sam Darnold, because I think Sam Darnold had an awesome season where he was resurrected. And I think in a good situation, in a good infrastructure, Sam Darnold can be an awesome quarterback. But, man, what the hell are the Seahawks doing? DK Metcalf's on the trade block. I agreed with them cutting Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett's not the same player that he once was. But the Seahawks don't have an offensive line. They have a talented running back who they can't run the ball with because their offensive line is so bad. You're about to trade DK Metcalf, and you might think JSN is a better receiver than him now. I don't think that's a crazy take, but DK Metcalf still takes a lot of attention away from the defense. Sure. Now you only have one receiving option. You don't have no tight end that's a reliable option. And Sam Darnold, if they go out and pivot and sign Sam Darnold to a multi-year deal because he's younger than Geno, that's a mistake. This is a night and day situation from the Vikings situation. With Minnesota, he had an average offensive line. He had great receivers. He at least had an average running game. And he had a great to elite level play caller. With the Seahawks, all those things are in question. No offensive line, no running game, only one receiver, a play caller that is unproven in Clint Kubiak, who has had some nice moments, but has not shown a full year of calling plays at an elite level. Sam Darnold going to the Seahawks, I don't know what the Seahawks are doing. They're going backwards. If they do go that route, I just don't see it. And I think Sam Darnold, in order for him to maintain his level of production, he needs to go to another great situation. And the Seahawks are not that. I think if he goes to the Seahawks, he is going to get exposed. With all due respect, he is going to get exposed. He is going to look bad because the deficiencies that Geno Smith masked this past season, Sam Darnold wouldn't be able to mask. I don't care about the numbers. You can tell me Sam Darnold had more yards, more passing touchdowns. I don't care about the numbers. Geno Smith last year, I believed, played with a dog shit situation and made it at least serviceable. Sam Darnold, when we saw defenses finally start game planning for him at a different level, he folded with the Vikings. He was the biggest reason for their demise. This is a 14-win team we're talking about. He wasn't able to uplift a good situation, and now you're telling me I'm expecting him to go to a bad situation to uplift that? I don't think it's a good fit, and I think the Seahawks would be idiots if they pivoted from Geno to Sam.
Yeah, I knew the Raiders were going to make some move at quarterback because even though I don't think it's because of Bo Nix, I do think they look at that division as a whole and say, we need a quarterback to be at least third in this division, let alone be in first and second place, because Denver just showed last year that at a baseline, we're a team that's going to be winning 9 to 10 games every single year. And if we add pieces to this offense, if we add pieces to the run game, Bo Nix develops, we could be in competition with the Chargers for second place and who knows, win 11 plus games. So I knew they were going to make a move. Actually, in the free agent predictions, I had them going out and getting Sam Darnold, right? Of course, we talked in the past, Sam Darnold and Pete Carroll having the USC connection. The dots lined up there, but the dots line up a lot easier when you just go and get Geno Smith, your old quarterback from the Seattle Seahawks. For the Raiders' perspective, it makes all the sense in the world. A third-round pick for a proven quarterback who Joel has mentioned. This has not been a situation that like Sam Darnold was just perfect, where you had a great offensive line and everything going for you. He has definitely dealt with some pretty shitty situations, and he's still been able to lead this team to the playoffs in a division that hasn't been easy, right? The 49ers have been one of the best teams in football. I know they've been banged up this year. The Cardinals, when Kyler's on the field, has been scrappy, and we know what the Rams are when they're healthy too. So he's competed in a really good division and has played high-level football at quarterback. So you already have some pieces on the offense, right? You talked about Colton Miller. You have Brock Bowers, of course, who is breaking out to be arguably the best tight end in football right now. And even the receivers in Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker are more than serviceable, especially if you add a wide receiver too and you kind of have Tucker as your 3. I think that's an offense that is probably more well-rounded than what Seattle had. And especially when you I was about to say Josh Jacobs. I'm bugging. Definitely need to add a running back. You mentioned that, Drew. Definitely need to add a running back. Ashton Genty has been someone that they've been mocked to at pick 6. And I know for sure Pete Carroll is going to bring someone in, whether that's free agency, but more likely the draft with just all the pieces that you have. For Seattle, it's a bit of a head scratcher because you do have to think, right? This was a previous-ish regime, right? When you had Pete Carroll there, previous regime in general, he was the one making a lot of the roster decisions. So Pete Carroll was definitely a Geno Smith guy, right? Like when you move off Russell Wilson, he had Geno Smith in mind as someone that can take over, even though they traded for Drew Lock. And we had some comments that I regret saying about Drew Lock. But Pete Carroll really likes Geno Smith. So this is, once Mike McDaniel gets there, I do think he's a good head coach, but he's also a defensive-minded head coach. And I thought he showed last year, especially down the stretch, the defense did get better. They had some deficiencies, like as a run-stopping unit, but it did feel like he really honed in on defense, and I feel comfortable with him being the head coach of the team. On offense, though, we have seen a countless amount of coordinators who are countless amount of head coaches who are defensive-minded kind of screw up offense, whether that's not investing heavily in it, whether that's missing on quarterbacks, missing on offensive play callers. So I do get a bit fearful that this is what is happening here because you are moving off DK. It looks like, of course, you just moved off Geno Smith. And I like Clint Kubiak, right? When he showed those first couple of weeks when everyone was healthy with the Saints, it was awesome. It was a light show. They were the number one offense in football, but it was for 2 weeks, right? And then once the injuries started to pile up, especially to Derek Carr, the offense fell off as you would expect. But I think it's fair to still call it a bit of a question mark. It's a bit of a head scratcher because Seattle, while they're not a playoff lock by any means, or they're not a team that we're looking at to they could win the division, even though maybe they had an outside chance with a couple good free agency moves and draft decisions. You still had a pretty good baseline of like, if everyone's healthy and, you get a second year in this defensive system and maybe you get an upgraded offense, an offensive play caller, maybe we could, compete with the Rams or the 49ers. Cause I don't think it's going to take more than like maybe 11 wins to get this division. I don't know if San Francisco. 10 games. That's what I'm saying, bro.
They won the same amount of games as the Rams. The Rams just had the tiebreaker over them.
Yep.
This is a team that they won 10 games. They needed to add to their roster. And I don't think Geno was the problem. I think maybe the extension talks are the reason why they moved him. But, I think PFF does a better job of just the raw number stats to showcase quarterback play and just offensive grade in general. Now, looking at it, Geno Smith was the 9th ranked offensive grade quarterback according to PFF. Sam Darnold was number 13. So PFF, based off, and if you're unfamiliar with the process for the audience listening, how PFF grades this stuff, they have somebody watch every single play and they give it a grade. So, obviously that is more, that is a better process than just looking at the raw stats and what they say. But looking at Geno Smith, his big time throws this year, he had 28. Darnold had 34. So Darnold had more big time throws. Turnover worthy plays. Geno Smith had 18 turnover worthy plays. Sam Darnold had 27. And Geno, he only had 18 turnover worthy plays on the season. And you look at his interception total, he had 15 this past year.
Unlucky, yeah.
So he just got really unlucky with his interceptions, So Geno, I will say this, Geno in the red zone was definitely awful. I think Geno in the red zone, he made a lot of bad decisions. But overall, Geno was a very safe quarterback. And Darnold, he wasn't.
You're taking a risk.
Yeah.
Seattle's taking a big risk because I think their frame of mind is Geno Smith is 33, 34 years old. He's not the long-term answer at quarterback. We can get a 3rd round pick, a day 2 pick who maybe turns into a starter, and we could go sign Sam Darnold, who is probably going to be more just as expensive, but you theoretically have more upside because he's younger and he has traits and he's more mobile than Geno. But it's you're lowering your floor, and I don't think the ceiling rises that much because I do think Kevin O'Connell in that offensive system was really helping him out.
Yeah, you're really just not going to find a quarterback better than Geno Smith on the market. Like Sam Darnold is the best one. Maybe they pivot to like Aaron Rodgers, right? I think Geno's still better than Aaron Rodgers right now. It's just, this is a clear downgrade. I think this is just a clear bad move by Seattle. And I think the Raiders, like just giving up a 3rd round pick for a proven quarterback who's a starter. I mean, my goodness. Now they just have to fill out the team. I think the offense for the most part is there. The defense has a long way to go, and they gotta overhaul that. But Pete Carroll is making a clear move to say, listen, I know I'm not gonna be coaching 10 years. This is a 2-year window for me, and I'm trying to win. And he went out and got a quarterback that can win games.
I'll say this on behalf of Seattle and their future. Geno Smith was getting up there. He was going to command a lot of money.
I think Kevin's sick.
I think Kevin is mad.
Does he like Geno?
He loves Geno.
Yeah, that sucks.
I understand all Seattle fans loving Geno. I think your long-term vision needs to be Geno Smith was due for a contract. He was going to want a lot of money. We are not a championship team yet. If that's the case, we get a 3rd round pick, albeit maybe not the best compensation in the world, but think about where you started with Geno Smith. The fact that he blossomed into anything was a miracle, and the fact that he was really great his first season with Seattle, not so great the following, it's obviously unfortunate, but you were able to get a decent return. Geno Smith was not going to be a championship caliber Super Bowl quarterback. He was not going to be that. Your team is pieces away. You weren't bad by any means last year, but your offensive line needs help. It would be hard to pay Geno to then go out there and now let's bring an offensive lineman. Now we really have to hit in the draft. And then obviously we have a defensive coach who wants to make that their identity. It's hard to balance the two. I think when you're trying to think of the long-term vision, you trade Geno, you move off of him, you have a bridge quarterback in Sam Darnold. Hopefully the years aren't insane. If they go and sign to a big contract, everything I just said, take it, crumble it up, throw it away.
It might just be like a 3-year deal.
But if this is a bridge quarterback contract, now I'm really interested in what the future holds for Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know about the Sam Darnold component, like if they're going to go after him or not. I know I'm kind of down talking Sam Darnold, and I apologize for that because I don't know.
Sam Darnold guy.
I don't know if that's the move they're going to pivot to.
That's what Rossini was
I just think overall, unless your clear pathways just to be a worse team, this makes sense. Like if you're trying to be bad and you're trying to be a worse team, this makes sense. If you're looking at Shador falling in the draft or Jackson Dart and drafting him and that's your quarterback, okay, that makes sense. But I mean, moving off of Geno Smith, man, I don't think not paying him improves the offensive line just because they weren't able to get the offensive line right anyway. Whether it's been Russell Wilson or Geno Smith on his contract, that was a steal at the time. John Schneider has just not been able to figure out offensive linemen. So maybe this 3rd round pick helps that. But man, I didn't think this team was that far away. Like, they just won 10 games, and Geno Smith, for being this like quarterback who blossomed late, last 3 seasons, 9-8, 9-8, 10-7. Mm-hmm. He hasn't had a losing season as a quarterback in a situation that
good division and not a amazing roster.
His first 2 years in Seattle, no defense at all. Their defense was bad. This was the first year he had a good defense, and the offense fell off. So I look at Geno as a winning quarterback, and it just all matters about situation. And let's see what the Raiders do. They have a lot of flexibility to make things interesting.
They do.
Yeah.
Wow.
That
what
was
a trade.
Bombshell.
It's really nuts, man.
Geno
I can't
Smith.
believe the fear that Bo Nix puts into the rest of these GMs.
Geno Smith broke the NFL world, man. I love Geno.
I will say I love recently moves being made that nobody sees coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Joe Tooney getting traded, nobody saw it coming. Geno Smith getting traded, I didn't know he was available. I love that we get moves like this because, again, it's kind of whack when inevitably that it's going to happen. You know that they're going to get traded like Devontae Adams last year. Mm-hmm. You knew he was going to be a Jet. Takes away the
when it takes a while, it sucks.
Facts. It's just like, all right, it happened. Cool.
That's why the Lucas shit was so crazy. Because number 1 is Luka, but number 2 it's like, huh?
The NFL is, trying to get up there with the NBA with the trades and transactions.